Hey, what's going on, peeps? Here we are. Here we are for part 4 of the Gap Selling Book Club. Live book club. And with my celebrity guest, which I'm pretty excited about, actually. It's the man, David Brock himself. You don't follow David on LinkedIn or other channels, you're just crazy. I could say that, I guess I can say, I could do this now. I could say this. So I'm old. I'm officially an older person, right? By those terms of however they define older people, because I'm 53, turned 53 last week. So I have a little bit of ageism in me, right? Because I just find that older people have a tendency to be so fucking stuck in their ways, and which is fine, but getting them to recognize it and change is a pain in the ass. And a quick story, my mom's birthday was a couple days ago, and I wanted to send her something, so I told her to get Venmo. And man, getting her to do Venmo, I swear to God, I was like, Mom, just fucking get the Venmo, okay? So she has her sister-in-law set her up. And then she doesn't know her username, blah, blah, blah. So I walk her through that. I finally get it all, and I send her $100 for her birthday. She goes, wow, this is really cool. And I'm like, yeah, I had to fight you tooth and nail to get that shit to work and for you to show it any mind. But so us old people, we just can't help ourselves. We get stuck. Why do I say all this? Because Dave's a silver fox. So we all know he's not 30. But Dave has an uncanny knack of staying relevant and not allowing that age old, I've been there, I've done that, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing the same shit in 1980 as I am now. So love the man for it. He was a mentor for me early in my sales consulting career. So super glad to have him. Thank you for being here, Dave.
Well, you're the oldest Bart I've hung out with for the last couple of weeks. So
great man.
I'm just, I'm hanging out with the wrong crowd. I did from the Gen Z type guys these days. So
as you should. Just in the 20 minutes I've been hanging out with you, my beard's getting as white as your hair.
No, they're much more interesting than you are, Keenan. So
well, you're hanging with a good group then. That's impressive. That's almost impossible in my little head.
Yeah.
All right, and then with that also, I want to introduce Jeff Weiser. He is wiser now than he was about 2-3 weeks ago. He was one of our Gap Sell Keenan people, and I think he got pounded pretty bad. Like, he tried, and I loved his enthusiasm, but he just didn't get it. But he said he's I'll let him tell you, but he says it's a great experience and that it's helped him a lot. He's looking at it every day, and now he is here to join us in the book club today. So welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Keenan. Great to be here with you and Dave. Like I just said in the green room, I can't believe I'm here with the mentor and the mentor of the mentor. So thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Oh, these are small. I got to make sure I don't get out of frame. So, all right, folks, what are we going to do today? We are going to talk about, let me see if I can make it even better. A little more frame. What we are going to talk about today is chapter 4. Where's that? Page 185. Not chapter 4, sorry. Part 4, building a gap selling team. I don't think I give this enough play, so I was happy to have Dave. You guys, if you haven't gotten it, go get it. Dave has written a book called The Sales Manager Toolkit. Did I get that right, Dave?
Survival Guide.
Sorry. Yeah. It's got a really cool example of a really cool image of show it more this way. More. There you go. Yeah. That's it right there. Go buy that book. All you sales managers, sales manager wannabes, that's going to accelerate your career. So that's why he's here today. He's going to talk to us about what it means to be a sales manager, help build a gap selling team. And then Jeff is going to throw in his 2 cents as well. So this is good stuff. All right. So I'll let you kick off. So I'm not doing all the talking. Dave, what did you think about that part? And what do you think people should know the most?
Well, I thought the whole section was really good. And I think the thing that I really look at from a sales manager point of view is we are here to serve our people. Mm-hmm. We are here. You have the chapter. It's not about us, and it isn't about us. It's about our people. And the job of the sales manager, most of the time I go and talk to sales managers, and I ask them the question, "What's your job?" And they say it's to make the numbers. And I say, wrong. It's your people's job to make the numbers, mm-hmm. and it's your job to do everything possible to support them and help them do that, to maximize their performance, both in the job right now and in their future development. So I think you just nailed it. All I had to do was see the title of that chapter. It's not about you to know that, but mm-hmm. I think too often we as sales managers get that wrong. And I think we sometimes as salespeople get it wrong. I was on a call last week with a sales executive, and they were in a team, and they were strategizing one of the most important executive calls they were going to make this quarter. It was for tens of millions of dollars, and the sales executive all of a sudden took it over. And I said, "You're gonna screw this up. This is your team's strategy. You're there to serve them and help them on the call. You aren't there to take that whole thing away from them." So, as I look at salespeople, say, if you want managers involved in calls and working with you, they're there to serve you, to serve your purposes. Again, it's all about the people. It's all about how we maximize their performance. I really nailed it on that.
No, it is. One thing that hit me a while ago, and I think I want to do more on this piece. And that is, I don't think we understand as sales managers, and I would even go so far as sales managers than sales leaders and blah, blah, blah. And that is, I believe that the best sales leaders, so manager, mid-level, blah, 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 or get out of sales, whatever, gets more out of people than they can get out of themselves.
Yeah.
Like they should be a force multiplier, right? Like, look, at the end of the day, those of us who are motivated, those people who want to get stuff out of themselves, they'll go do it. But no matter what, nobody is capable of maximizing themselves. I believe that to the deepest part of my core. I don't even care if it's Michael Jordan. I don't care if it's Tiger Woods, right? There is a ceiling of what we can get out of ourselves. And the best leaders, managers, etc., have an uncanny knack to get us places that we couldn't get ourselves or other people couldn't get us. And I don't think enough people recognize the power in that.
Yeah. And it's really all about how do we get each other, and how do we get our teams, how do we get ourselves thinking differently and constantly growing.
Totally. We got Broderick in here. I thought we were never going to get.
Sorry, man. Sorry. I know. I'm like, Keenan is getting pissed right now, talking about people not showing up. I'm trying to show up. I really was. I really thank Doris for me, by the way. She was a huge help, and I appreciate you bringing me on. So
absolutely,
so, yeah.
Doris is the bomb. We love Doris.
Yeah.
All right. So, Weiser, what were your thoughts about the chapter?
So
part. Sorry, it's like 5 chapters in there.
Sure. So look, I think that a couple things that struck me. I guess I could start with the commit culture.
Okay.
I do have some questions, but the overall impression of the commit culture is I've never seen one in the sales jobs that I've had and the sales teams that I've had. And I think everybody strives to say they're going to meet their quota to where they're at. But Keenan, you've actually done it, right? You've actually gotten people within this 15% of what they say they're going to do. Yep. And that just blew my mind because I've never seen it. And so I'm very, very curious to experience it. And I think that the only way to get there, as far as I see, is to go deeper in gap selling.
Look, the key to a commit. Look, by the way, let me be clear. If you haven't read the book, you'll have to read the book what commit is. But basically, the simplest term is the beginning of each quarter. The sales team has to commit a certain dollar amount that they don't go over or under by 15%. Over or under, which is the key piece, right?
Right. That's the over part. Yeah.
Right. It's like it's too easy because most of what I see in forecasting today is I'm going to do $100,000, and then the person does $200,000. Hey, look at me, I'm great, right? Well, if I can go over it, whatever I want, I'm going to give you the lowest number I can possibly give you that you'll accept, and then I'll exceed it every time. That provides no value. But what I found is that the more you know about the opportunity, right, the more you understand the business and the impact of not moving and the buying process and the buying decision criteria, then it becomes fairly easy to. Now, it's not a science. If you're in, for instance, enterprise, we only sell 4 or 5 deals in an entire year. Commit culture doesn't work very well because it's just too, single-threaded. Like you lose one deal, it could be 60% of the entire revenue for that year. You can't do a commit culture. You have to do it differently. But for anything that's more than a couple of transactions a month, it works. It works. And you just got to understand the business. And that's why most people fail at forecasting.
So I'll push back and disagree with you a little bit on that Keenan. I believe the commit culture applies to everything we do. So let's take it away from the forecast and let's talk about it from a deal point of view.
Okay.
And I remember a couple of years ago, I was sitting doing a pipeline review and some deal reviews with a team, and one of the guys was committing. He says, Dave, this quarter you can commit this deal to closing, blah, blah, blah. It was one of the biggest deals the team had for the quarter. And I started looking at the Salesforce data, and this guy had changed his commit 11 times in 12 months.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't change.
He was not committing to it at all. He was, just slipping and responding to anything. And that was really bad. So the first thing I look at in a commit culture is around a deal. And I say, what's your commitment to when that deal is going to close and for what value? And to do that with high integrity, it has to be customer driven. It has to be tied to what's the customer's need to buy, when do they need to have a solution in place, and what are the consequences of not having that solution in place?
Yes.
And you do that really nicely. And the thing is that then you can really push the customer you can be aggressive, with this, gentle older face. You don't know that I'm a real asshole when you get to know me, is that I push my clients really hard and say, you need to do this because it's what you need to do, not what I need to do.
Yes.
And so if you look at it too, let's step back. Look at great project managers. All selling is and buying is a specialized application of project management. Great project managers keep the target completion date the same. As things get screwed up in the project, they rework the project plan backwards, keep that goal the same. And I think we as salespeople, get that really wrong and get our orientation really wrong. We keep pushing for the order because I committed to close it by the end of the quarter. We need to push, we need to push for the order because this is when the customer committed to do that.
Yes.
And we need to hold them accountable for their commitments. So commit culture begins with each deal. It begins with each prospecting call. And then as we kind of build that up, it goes to commits around forecasts, commits to each other, and so on and so forth. Sorry it took so long, but
no, that's well stated. Wouldn't want to say any less time. Broderick, how do you guys handle it? How do you handle all that?
I'm just jumping in a little bit late, obviously, on the group here, but one of the biggest things that I love about gap selling, Keenan, and I think that this is really hits on one of the main key differences between what the value that gap selling brings versus product centric selling, which is what, in my opinion, the majority of companies out there, they really do focus on product centric selling. What are your keys? What are your key benefits? And getting out there and just spewing it out to everybody they get in front of in hopes that one of those key benefits is going to grasp a hold of the person you're sitting in front of. And then they're going to figure out how best it can help them out.
Yes.
And when you are product centric selling, forecasting and goal setting, you might as well just, throw a dart in the dark. You have no clue what you're going to get because you have no clue what you're sitting in front of and whether or not they're going to even grasp what you're presenting to them and will they find the need. But when you are gap selling, man, and you know that you've already got your pick done, you know where it is that you're going in the conversation because you know what problems you solve, and you sit down with each individual client, knowing that this is somebody that you're going to figure out where that area is, that's where you can really get predictable with what it is that you can do each and every year. But if you want to try to do this product centric wise, I mean, it's a joke. And I think that that's why so many companies fail at forecasting, goal setting, and quota setting because of that aspect.
You couldn't have said that any better. Look, I believe, and I don't put enough emphasis on this. I probably need to, but the downstream negative effect of product centric selling is that nobody knows exactly why the buyer should buy.
Yeah.
Like Like I say all the time, and here's the greatest challenge to my company and scale in my company is people will sell for all eternity without being problem centric. Buyers are adept enough at figuring out themselves or got so much pain that they just don't care and they're gonna buy. And the salesperson is gonna think it's them, right? But they weren't. They were just a glorified order taker, right? They threw enough shit against the wall. The buyer processed it themselves. They got to some place on their own, like, all right, fuck it, I'll buy. What they didn't realize is how many deals they lost because they were doing that and they didn't know why the buyer should buy and how they sat in the pipeline for 6, 8, 10, 12 months. And then the buyer said, I just won't change. Therefore, I'm not going to buy from you. And they never knew any of that. So that whole blindness to that information, to your point, is why we lose so much because we have no idea why they should buy our shit in the first place. So excellent observation.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of, over the years, so many reasons as to why either my pipelines haven't succeeded or other salespeople that I've seen, and they always usually boil down, oh, well, you screwed up, one of the points of BANT, right? Therefore, you weren't in control of the sale. Well, I guess maybe that's true if you are trying to product sell, but those variables, I think it's amazing to rethink about how those variables don't matter at all when you're right aligned with your customers' problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, go, David. Yep, go.
I think, again, going back to, we kind of started this on the forecast and meet your commitment and so on and so forth. And again, when I look at it, it's all about the deal and the aggregate of the deals. So, for instance, last fall, I was involved with I still have them as a client, it's a multi-billion-dollar organization. They were forecasting Q3. And they were forecasting coming in at about $4 billion. At the end of Q3, I did an analysis. They hit $4 billion, but 35% of the deals that they had committed for Q3, they actually lost. And what they did is they made up the number by pulling things forward, by doing miracles and things like that. So when you look at that, they weren't making their commitment; they were making a number. And and the EVP, the RVPs of sales got pissed off with me because I said you underperformed your potential.
Yes.
How do you, at the beginning of the quarter, commit 35% to the forecast and you lose them? And that's just bad management. So I think you dramatically underperformed the quarter because you were able to pull things in, you were able to do things. And again, so I think we lose perspective about what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do this and how we're really trying to grow our business. Mm-hmm. So it really starts with, do I know what's happening with each and every deal? Am I driven by the customer and what they need to achieve? And once you start doing that, you have super high integrity around the value you create for your customer, the integrity around those deals. And then you stack that up and you have integrity across all these deals, and you always start making your commits at all levels.
Yeah. Now watch this, David. Let me ask you if you see this, or Jeff or Jeff Weiser or Broderick, what you just described, and I don't even know how to shine light on this outside of having the chance to do a full dive with buyers, which you normally don't get to that level, but basically they just did a shell game with $1.5 billion. You said they were $4 billion. They committed $4 billion. They lost 35% of the opportunities that were in that quarter, which means they pulled $1.5 million of slightly less than 1.25, but still $1.25 billion from Q4, slid that over. Now when
they lost that. They lost that.
No, they lost 35%, but you said they made up for it by going and pulling new shit in. Right? So they lost 35% of the current quarter, went into Q4, yanked 1.25 into Q3. Now watch this. Then they go into Q4 and they commit, I'm making up a number, $3.7 billion, right? Yeah. No one recognized or talked about the fact that 1.25, had they closed what they were supposed to, would still be sitting in Q4, which means they should have had a $5 billion quarter. That is hidden loss. Nobody ever sees that. It's a total shell game, and no one realizes what's going on because they're not paying attention.
And we play those shell games with ourselves as we're looking at our territory and so on and so forth. So I look at this as kind of a commit integrity issue. Are we really doing what we intend to do? Are we doing what we're investing our time to do? Are we producing the results we have committed to ourselves and then consequently to the organization? And these shell games don't help us. I do pipeline reviews with people, and I can inevitably go into almost anybody's pipeline the first time, and I can wash out 50, 60% of it. It's crap. But I said, the good news is now we have truth in front of us, and now we know what problem to solve and how to solve that. What we do is we put all this crap in front of ourselves, and we don't know what problem we need to solve and how to be most effectively. So however bad things look, we're smart people and we know how to get out of it. But if we cloud it with all this stuff, with wishful thinking, with low integrity, with not making our commitments, whatever those are, we'll never perform as we could.
No, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Yeah, that's an astonishing example, Dave, of those multiple billions being pushed around. So that's quite an interesting perspective. My thoughts as we're having this conversation are, is gap selling really the way to, in essence, and Keenan, I might be right or wrong about this, but it's just a thought. Is it really the way to externalize you as not responsible party, but as the one, you're the one who's making numbers, right? You're not making the numbers at all. The people that are actually creating the numbers are your customers, because they're based on their real problems. So that seems like a paradigm shift in terms of how most people have always sold, if I understood that correctly.
Go deeper. Tell me what you mean.
So, you see these things being shifted around in internal sales teams, like the example that we just saw, and then I think about the example in your book, right, where there are actual solid facts based on information gathered from the customer of where they're at in their problem and how real that problem is. Whereas you don't have that in the example that Dave mentioned, or so many of the pipeline / deal meetings that I've been in, where you see people that talk and try to explain and say, I'll come up with it next month and move things around.
So one of the things that David said a second ago is I can find 35, 40, 50% of pipeline that's crap, right? And I'm with David on that. Like, that is how sales managers and leaders don't do this on their own is beyond me. But I do the same thing. And one of the things I do is I ask right away, why should they buy? Okay. And 99% of the time when I'm going through the pipeline, I'm trying to see what deals are real, what deals aren't, they can't tell me why they should buy. So the minute they tell me they don't know why they should buy, I'm suspect. I'm like, this is a joke. And so the reason the pipeline gets so jacked up is because you don't know why they should buy. And so therefore, here's the key piece now, and I'm finding myself saying this more and more and more, and David referenced it before, is you don't understand their current state. And because you don't understand their current state, watch what I do here, everybody. Pay attention. You don't know why they need to change. See, what people miss with this whole idea of sales is about change. My current situation is such that I can no longer stay here. It does not behoove me to continue to do what I'm doing, and I'm ready to invest in change. Whether that's $5, whether that's an action to get up out of my seat and go change my shirt, whatever it is, right? I have come to a conclusion that where I am at now is untenable and not acceptable any longer. If a deal is in the pipeline and you don't know why they should change, that is why it sits there 7 months, 10 months, 2 years, because they were never ready to change and you never figured that shit out. It's the size of the problem and the impact of change that drives someone to do it and spend the money, make the investment, and move. And not enough salespeople understand what that is. And that's why pipelines become absolute shit shows.
Well, yeah, you know what, Keenan, too? One of the biggest things that's kind of implicit in all of this that we're talking about that is also a major problem in sales organizations is CRM management. And you do hit on CRM management within the book. But I'm telling you, man, I mean, salespeople and CRM management, we suck because we're on the fly, we're on the go, we're communicating outside of the system so often, and we're not wanting to go back in and update our stuff and making sure that we've got everything plugged in. But if you do not do that, all of this stuff that we're talking about it's unmanageable. You cannot get your arms around what's going on without proper CRM management. And I think when salespeople start to realize and understand that CRM management isn't just for, but it's not just for managers and oversight and companies to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on with everything within their organization. It's also for the salesperson themselves to understand what's going on within each individual deal and be able to look back on them and understand where is the bread and butter coming from in the sales that I'm making. How many of the problems am I solving and which problems am I solving for the client most often? And if you're not managing your CRM properly with that, it's all for naught.
Completely and utterly agree. David, you wanted to chime in on that?
Jeff, that was such a critical point, and I always get into debates about that. Is unfortunately most people who sell CRM systems sell it for the managers, and the managers think they're implementing it for themselves. But the real value is how each salesperson leverages it to make themselves more productive, more effective, more efficient. And, if you get the salespeople doing that, then what happens is the value that managers get is icing on the cake. But, I can't, my own team, we have 15 people in the company, and my own team years ago, fought me and said, Dave, you got to implement a CRM system. And I said, no, I don't want to spend the money, blah, blah, blah. And they forced me to do it. And now we can't live. I wake up every morning and I can't live without my CRM system. And it's not me as a manager, but this is telling me the most impactful way for me to spend my time today and tomorrow and so on and so forth, and keeps me accountable to myself.
Yes.
So, what's interesting? Here's another thing I don't talk enough about, but do you remember the CRM challenge, Jeff?
I do.
Right?
I do.
So, Dave, do you remember the CRM challenge from the book?
No, I don't.
So, Jeff, we'll go with Weiser. Tell David what the CRM challenge is.
So the CRM challenge is when you're able to, so a sales manager can go to any deal. It's escaping me exactly. Wasn't it to ask exactly what their problem is, the customer's problem is at that moment?
No. So you go into the CRM, and without reading the name of the account, contact, or any identifying information, you just read the notes. And can that salesperson tell you what opportunity that is?
Yes.
Yep.
Right? And what I found, David, is 99% of the time they can't, because what they do is they focus on very, very high level root causes. So let's just say you sell a software that simplifies data in multiple systems, right? So what you'll do is you'll go into the CRM, and what you'll see is XYZ has data in multiple systems. They're unable to, drive revenue. And it says some version of that across every fucking opportunity, right? And that's what they literally think they're selling. And yet they've done nothing to actually more specifically identify, okay, company A has different systems, and so therefore they're $1 billion company, and they work in the aerospace space with government funding and high levels of compliance. But the other one is different systems, but they work in healthcare and they have to deal with HIPAA. And in neither case could you even tell that one was aerospace and one was healthcare, because the salespeople just don't get deep enough.
Well, and see, that's if you can't get specific to the customer situation, and if you can't get specific to the buyers themselves and how they're going to go through the buying process, you don't have the secret to winning. I make sure, I for every deal I talk to people about, I say you have to answer 3 core questions. What's the compelling need to change?
Yep.
When do they have to have it in place? And what are the consequences of not doing it?
Yep.
And also there you have the business impact. And then everything else flows from that. Is how do I help them make the decision by that point? I had an example, a few years ago, somebody was screwing around with me. We were going through this process. And for some reason, he wanted a 30% discount. This is a multi-million-dollar deal. And he wanted a $30 million discount. I said, Gilad, why do you want that? He says, well, I just think I deserve it from you. And I said, look, every month you wait on this decision, you're losing $45 million of revenue.
Yes.
And I said, I can wait. And he kind of paused. Then he started laughing at me and he says, I'm being stupid, aren't I?
Yep.
And I said, yes, but I had the power because I understood the business impact of this, that I didn't have to discount. In fact, I told him I'm thinking about raising my price because, what I'm going to give you, and for $45 million a month, I mean,
yeah,
that's a huge impact. And so, again, I find that I can push customers really in a nice way, in a very aggressive way, keep integrity to this whole process because I'm driven by what's in it for them.
Yep. Yep.
And I can articulate that and I can keep them focused on it. They lose track of this as they go through their buying process. They forget why they're buying, what they're trying to do. It becomes a task to them. And part of our responsibility as an orchestrator of the customer buying process is to keep reminding them why they're doing this and what this is. And that keeps them on schedule. We read all sorts of CEB and Gartner stuff about 53% of buying cycles end in no decision made because they get lost or they don't have the business value. And so on and so forth. So we become great stewards for our company. And oh, by the way, it produces tremendous results for us. But we only get the results through the customer.
And you can't, here's the key piece, and we're going to have a little fun here in a second, so stay with me, guys. And if you're managing more than 2 or 3 customers at a time, which 90% of most salespeople are, you cannot remember all of those unique nuances. So David would boil it down to 45 million a month, but I'm also sure he understood the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 root causes for that. He was able to describe what was underpinning that. He could probably break down the 45 million in different areas. But now, David, he's got a mind like a freaking steel trap. I don't. I won't remember all that. If I had this conversation with Dave and I got all that information on Tuesday, April 3rd, and then on Wednesday, April 4th, I had one with Jeff, and his was 22 million. And Jeff Broderick, I had one with you on April 19th, and yours was, $750,000, and your root cause for this and Jeff's for that. At the end of the month, when I come back to David, I'm not going to remember it all. Yeah. I will not remember it, specifically the details. Now watch this. Howard Lerner, I hope he's still watching. He is a 30-year guy at Verizon, 30 years. So I can understand why he said what he just said. 30 years in 1 month. So happy anniversary, Howard. 30 years at any organization. I hope you're still in the pension program because you deserve it after 30 years. But here's what he just said, y'all. Howard said Salesforce provides no value to the salespeople. It is strictly a management tool. I could say, Howard, I can appreciate and understand why you think that way, but you could not be any more wrong. And if you're salespeople and you think that way, then I don't know what you've been doing to actually manage and balance the level of information that you need to capture to sell your buyers the way David was able to sell his guy. You've been missing out. So if Verizon, Verizon, if they're pushing it to you in a way that you're not allowed to use it for yourself, I can understand, but you could not be any more wrong. Who wants to jump in on that, Howard?
Well, I think you need to blow off the management on that because that's what management will do. That's how Salesforce will sell it to managers because they're paying the bill. But I literally cannot live without Salesforce. Yep. I start every day, I end every day in Salesforce. It shows my calendars, it shows my to-dos, it shows me what my priorities are, and I just execute on those. Mm-hmm. And I put everything in there, whether I have to go this afternoon and get a haircut, and all that sort of stuff. I put everything in there, but it keeps me on track, and I have so much stuff going on because I'm both selling deals, delivering deals. I sit on boards and so on and so forth. So everything is in my notes. That's my life. And I do it for me because that's the only way I can produce. And so, anybody that hasn't discovered that, we discovered little tricks. We did something actually for AT&T a number of years ago. We ran an A and B group. We said, you have to enter your data into Salesforce or your CRM system at the time, all the time. Group A enter your data on on Friday. Just catch up on what happened in the week. Group B, enter your data every day, ideally after you've had a significant event and need to do an update, alternatively at the end of the day. We found the amount of time people were spending in Salesforce varied by 35%. Group A had to spend 35% more time than Group B, who was updating it in real time. And if you start thinking of it, the reason is I'm sitting here thinking, what did I do on Friday? What did I do on Monday? And I'm wasting a huge amount of time, and I've probably forgotten everything.
Yep.
So I get the greatest impact, and there is no excuse today. I can dictate my notes into this little thing. I write down a lot of stuff. I can take a picture and attach it to my Salesforce record. So it takes me 3 or 4 minutes after every significant call to keep this updated, but I would literally lose control. I am doing too much stuff myself not to have this tool. So it's an excuse. It's a poor excuse. Forget what your manager says. Do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I'll jump in real quick too, because I'll tell you just from my personal experience here. And by the way, I think I better start using my CRM for my haircuts.
I know this was longer than normal.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Hey, this is my quarantine hair going on, man. So one of the things that is unique about for me is that I don't have sales management. Like, I'm not managed. My organization, I'm about as close to an independent contractor as it gets, except taxes come out of my check. But straight commission guy, I do my own thing. I'm on my own to figure things out. And Keenan, not to blow smoke, but I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why, I've been on Kicking It with Keenan with you. I'm on a couple book clubs with you. I met you down here in Chicago when you did in-person training. Like, I get what I need from gap selling and from your constant input. And so I appreciate it more than as to what I'm missing out personally in my business life. I don't have any of that stuff going on. So this is a big help. But when it comes to managing, I got to manage myself, and I have to live in my CRM, not because, and this is to the gentleman for Verizon that made that comment. Howard. Sorry. So Howard, listen up, man. Look, I would absolutely be a failure on my face if I did not use my CRM, and I don't have management overlooking my CRM. I don't have somebody diving in to my pipeline, giving me CRM challenges. I'm on my own, but you know what? I have to dive into my pipeline. I have to give myself CRM challenges because I got to be on my game. And if I'm not setting my own goals and I'm not setting my own expectations and making them realistic and working hard to achieve those and measuring them on my own, I am absolutely, then I'm just being lazy as a salesman, and I'm also not improving as a salesman. And so if you are motivated and you want to be better, and if you don't, then don't use a CRM. Who gives a crap? Just do whatever you want to do if you just want to be a lazy salesperson and take orders. But if you want to get better and you want to really make it a profession, man, you need to live in the CRM for yourself and not for anybody else. Anybody else can tag along, but it's for you.
I think Howard lives in a world that probably most salespeople live in. It's something management imposes on them, and so on. And management doesn't teach you how to use it for yourself. So, you kind of just got to suck it up and just say, management does what they want to do, but let me look at how to leverage this for myself. Be selfish about this, regardless of what your management does or doesn't do. I mean, for instance, Salesforce sucks. I went to Mark one time years ago and I said, who did you hire, Marquis Desaad, to design the user interface for this?
Yeah. It was bad.
And even the new interface sucks badly. But, I just have to say, this is for me. I'll figure out how to use it to get what I need to get out of it. And, and then my manager stays off my back and so on and so forth. But we can't use this as an excuse. We have to have tools, Jeff, as you said, that keeps you as productive as possible. And, for managers, it's icing on the cake, but do it for yourself. And if you can't do it, if you aren't using these tools, I don't know how you keep as productive as possible.
Which I think is a good transition to the last part, right? So I see you, Jeff. I just want to move this other, the last part about hiring the right people, right? So I love what you said there, David. You got to take it upon you. And when it comes to hiring the right people, that is the one thing that I most zero in on, is the ability of a person to take ownership for their job and just not see it as my job to tell them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and just take ownership. So when you look at chapter 20, hire the right people, page 211, we talk about these 9 different traits, right, on hiring salespeople. What are you guys' thoughts about that? Anybody want? Jeff Weiser, why don't you go share what they are, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. So curiosity, critical thinking, empathy, problem solving, leadership, creativity, deliberate learning, coachability, business acumen. I read that list, Keenan, and to be honest with you, I'm like, okay, that sounds like pretty. That sounds like a pretty good list, but something that I've seen before probably. And then when you read into actually what you go into here, you tie it all back into how a gap seller has to embody these traits. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was a really good section when it comes in my journey right now. I'm founding a company and I'm about to hire salespeople, and I'm going to be taking great care to go through all these pages as I evaluate them. But I can say for sure that this particular criteria I've never used to hire people or been hired by.
Broderick, what about you? Your thoughts?
No, I think this hits on like massive key elements that are overlooked so often. Your typical sales interview is just short of, sell me this pen. And right, I mean, it's sit down and tell me about where you were on the leaderboards at your previous organizations. But the stuff that you hit on in here it's really more intrinsic stuff that needs to be ingrained within an individual's character, within an individual's makeup, that you don't get from, sell me this pen. And yeah, I think if organizations would gravitate to understanding that these are the key elements of what you need as a foundation, as the bones of a sales organization, I think that there would be a whole lot more successful sales organizations out there.
I like how you started with curiosity as well, because you talked about that in the beginning of the book, describing kind of yourself as a kid and the curiosity that allowed you to kind of implement the kind of games you wanted. And I think that follows through, for any good salesperson that I can think of. And so being number one seemed to be perfect for me in terms of where to start understanding how to hire people for sales.
I don't think enough people are curious enough. Like I wasn't curious enough when I was a kid, at least when I was playing football, and it cost me, right? But as I get older, I don't know what it was, whether I do know this, and I have them in stores somewhere, and I wish I had one so I could show it to you. When I was a little kid, I don't know why or what happened, but my parents had, and I am shitting you not, and I didn't come from an upper middle class family. My dad was a big fan of education. He was the only one of 6 who actually went and got his degree, got his master's in social work. My mom was a nurse. She was born to a typical, Max Weber and read anything him, a Protestant ethnic family, but there must have been at least 5 different volumes of encyclopedias in my house growing up. I don't know how they got there. I don't know why they got there, but there was one. And now I'm mad I don't have them just out of pure curiosity. So there was certainly the Britannica, but then it was this world atlas thing or something that was white on top and bottom and this blue stripe in the middle. Then there was another one on science. I forget what that one was. And then there was another one that was for kids, kind of, and they were about this thick. And I still have them in storage. I'm mad as hell because I want to get them out now and read them. And you open them up, lots of pictures, but there was still words. And one thing I remember the most with them is they'd have a map of a country, right? And then it would tell you the resources they got out of the country. And then it had these little graphics that would show coal or corn right. And I could see, and I'd be curious, like, oh, I wonder if this one has more corn than this one. I would literally start flipping through these pages and seeing what had more and who was better and da-da-da. And so my point of this whole thing is somewhere along the line, it clicked for me. I realized I just got to know. I got to know everything. I got to understand. I remember when I was dating this girl, I will not mention her name, great lady. She lived in New Orleans, and I recognized that New Orleans has, what do you call that damn thing? Mardi Gras. But other than the Rio, no one ever did it. And so Fire was like, what the fuck is Mardi Gras? Like, what is it? Why do they do it? And why does no one else do it? And she looked me right in the eye. She goes, it's just a party. I don't know why. And I'm like, you grew up watching them do this every day your entire life. No one else in the United States does it, and it never occurred to you to ask why. And I think that is the common American. Sorry, with all due respect. That is the common person in this country. They just accept what's on the table and don't have a level of intellectual curiosity to want to understand. And I think that kills us. David, you want to say something?
But no, if you look at it, I mean, this is probably one of the most brilliant things that, what I didn't see on here is objection handling capability or
couldn't give a shit.
or closing skills and things like that.
Yeah.
One of my clients, they're probably the top performing sales organization I've ever seen. They have several thousand salespeople. Every year they take everybody through a 2-week boot camp. And guess what that 2-week boot camp is? It isn't about the latest, greatest sales methodology or technique or anything like that. It's 2 weeks on 4 topics: curiosity, critical thinking, problem solving, and collaborative discussions or orchestration. And they build that together because they say, this is what sets us apart in helping our customers. And you look at it, your customers are there's a lot talked about sense making and decision confidence. Customers, wherever they are struggling with these things. And unless we're out there curious and helping them figure it out, unless we can't help guide them through this problem solving process, they don't know how to do this. I look at, again, this piece of data that CED came out with a number of years ago. 53% of buying decisions end in no decision made. Think of that lost opportunity. We're competing with 3 or 4 other people for the other 47%, but there's nobody helping. That's a gold mine. And then you think about, what about those other people who never even started a buying journey, that if we ask them the right questions and if we're curious enough, we can help them think of, have you ever thought of doing something differently?
Yes.
And so we compete after the smallest part of the pie, the most difficult part of the pie, when, I want to go someplace where nobody else is competing and at least, define the playing field and define the ground rules and help the customers go through this. That's how I create value. I don't create value by going head to head with Keenan. I'm a much better salesperson than Keenan is. Anyway. I compete by going head to head against Keenan. That's a waste of my time. Yeah. I compete where Keenan isn't or where nobody is, in helping them rethink their businesses. And that's easy selling. And it's the most fun thing because I know how big an impact I can make.
One of the things on this list, Keenan, that the last book club I was on with Braun and you, we talked a lot about was empathy and compassion, and you hit on empathy on number 3 here. And in my opinion, that is a big driving force to curiosity. That's a big driving force to, the desire to want to understand the other person's perspective, and really getting into that, and it creates the curiosity because I want to know more, and ultimately drives compassion of, how can I help this person now that I understand this person? What is it that I can provide to deliver that? And I call gap selling compassionate selling because that's really the way that I've internalized it for myself. I want to work better on being more empathetic, and I want to work better on being more compassionate and coming up with the answers to that empathy that I'm understanding that will best help the people I do business with.
I think it's really interesting, Jeff, that you, as I was listening to you just there, you kind of did the same thing I did, which is seeing how these things connect from one to the next. First time I read it over, I didn't see that, but they certainly are all mixed, all connected. And then if you go into Keenan's last chapter, this kind of hits home to me in terms of what I've learned so far in business and in sales, and it's the ego. You don't use that word exactly, Keenan, but it is not. You do say it's not about you, just because you didn't want to say it's not about effing you. But it's not about you, and that for me is, you have to have those characteristics that are listed in the 9 qualities of a gap seller. Your ego has to be in check. You can't be an arrogant asshole and expect to embody these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me move this a little bit, because this kind of last section is about sales leadership and sales management. Those 9 qualities of a gap seller are great qualities for a gap leader and a gap sales manager. Because if we aren't curious, if we don't have empathy, if we don't provide critical thinking and problem solving skills and helping coaching and developing our people, we're underperforming them and our obligation to them, and we're underperforming the potential for our organization. So I would take all these things and say, if I'm a sales manager, how am I applying those to coaching and developing each person on my team and the organization?
It's a great point. And, and as you said, I didn't put this in here. Maybe I did. No, I didn't. Wait, no, I didn't put it in. I have a whole section and approach to managing people, which I call, I actually kind of stole it and made it my own. So I combined 2 things. I combined, I'm staring at his face right now. Come to me. Mark Roberge and his, what he calls his observe and apply. So when he's talking about coaching salespeople, he talks about, he sees if they can absorb what he's giving them, and he sees if they can apply it. Well, I also added to that. I took something from my days as a ski instructor. And in skiing, they teach you what's called guest-centered teaching, and they teach you how to first observe what the person is doing, then describe to them what you saw, not what you didn't see, but describe to them what you saw. And then I added my own piece on this one. So observe, then describe what you saw and the impact, then prescribe an alternative and the new impact. Then you attach Mark's piece where you observe, see if they absorbed what you shared with them. Then you see if they can apply it. You observe their application, describe what you saw, the impact of what they did, prescribe an alternative, the impact, they're looking great, and it becomes a big cycle, right? I do that in my coaching training, but I didn't put it in the book. And to David's point, that's the power. If you have critical thinking, if you have curiosity, if you bring all these things to the table and you apply that management theory that starts with observation and describing what you see in the impact, you can't help but improve people. You can't help but bring value, right? But it also has to start with them and your ability to see how you can help them.
I think one thing I'd like to make a point that I see people do so badly about this chapter 20 and hire the right people. One is, do we have the ideal profile defined for what we're looking for in it? And does it cover both kind of values, behaviors, experience, and so on and so forth? But one of the things that just pisses me off is too many managers treat hiring too lightly.
Yes.
We burn through people, we commoditize them. And really, in every sales role that we have, we're making a multi-million-dollar decision. Think of if your customers are going out and making a multi-million-dollar decision on a piece of capital equipment. They get a bunch of people together, they really study it, they try and make the best kind of buying decision they possibly can. Yet we hire people too casually. They impressed us on an interview. We bonded with them, we had chemistry with them, but these people, each person is a multi-million-dollar decision because we expect them to be generating millions of dollars each year for a number of years. And if we make a bad hire, we lose that. And so I really get concerned about managers taking this whole process too casually, not being serious about it, saying, I can hire Keenan. If he doesn't work out, I'll fire him and get somebody else. Well, I'm blowing off millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And with a guy like Keenan, because he's so screwed up, it's tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I just have to keep yanking your chain.
Yeah, you yank away, man. Yank away. Look, anytime your old ass can pull a chain at all, I'm going to let you.
What a privileged dynamic we have here today, that's for sure.
Oh,
What are you thinking of this, Jeff?
There you go.
Yeah. All right, so it's been 54 minutes, so we're wrapping up here. I'll let each of you sort of share anything you want. I'll give each a little bit of time to talk about a piece of the book you like, you didn't like, something you want to reinforce, whatever. The floor is yours. We'll start from my right to left. So Broderick to you, then to Jeff, and we'll let the venerable Mr. Brock wrap us up. So Broderick, thoughts?
Yeah, when I summarize the book in general and what it's done for me, I've been doing sales way too long because I'm probably 35 years now. Yeah, 35 years of sales. And out of 35 years, been 18 years at the same organization. So I haven't quite hit that 30-year mark that Howard has hit, but I'm working on it. So 18 years. But the thing that I will tell you is that I've always loved sales. And what I've loved about sales is the challenge behind it. And it's always fun. It's always interesting. But my entire career, up until probably my early 30s, was always like more one call close selling, sell or get thrown out. And, you're not consultative whatsoever. It's more, figure out how to spin this thing so that you can walk out of there with a deal or move on to the next. And I got into consultative selling back in my early 30s, and it was a very different thing. It was more, focus, find the pain, the old pain deal, and focus on the pain. And over the years, between my early 30s till now, I kind of drifted back into kind of mixing the two together and really not really having a really good solid format. You came out with gap selling, Keenan, and when I read it, it was a reminder of something that I've always known and not been able to put together in my own head. It's like that missing puzzle piece that it's like, I know I'm off somewhere. I know I'm not doing something that I should be doing. And when I read through this thing and I got the epiphany of what it was that this thing was really opening my eyes back to, which is you have to get away from your product. You have to focus on the problems. And I had never done picks before. And I've learned to do picks. I've learned to focus on really understanding what the buying process is, something that you hit on in these key chapters here, which is super important. And going through that process and understanding not just what is their buying process so I know how to sell them, but what is their buying process so that I can help this company get to the future state that they ultimately need or want to get to. And this book really changed everything for me back to focusing on the customer, providing that empathy, providing that compassion, and how best can I help them, not just go get a sale.
Well, thank you, bro. That's huge, man. All right. I don't know what to say. Thank you. I'm glad it's been that helpful. That's my favorite part of the book. No question. Yeah. No question. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. All right, Weiser, none the wiser. For those who don't know, he got his ass handed to him in a freaking try to gap sell Keenan, and it's amazing he's here. He's here.
Oh yeah,
because he got hammered.
So, this book has two main connections for me. I won't say conclusions because I hadn't heard of you until 3 months ago, Keenan, when I heard about you on the Sales Hacker podcast.
Yeah.
But the two connections for me that have been made: empathy and ego. You need to understand the customer more, and always continue to work on keeping your ego where it needs to be able to feed that empathy. Of course, beyond that, it's I'm looking at it as a sales manual on how I'm going to be building up my sales activities, my teams, etc., in the coming months and years. Now that I've found it, but those two things are kind of the new connection I've made that I'm holding on to: the empathy and the ego.
Brilliant. I love it. You can never lose if you have lots of empathy and you keep your ego in check. You can never lose. Well done, baby. Well done. All right, Mr. David Brock, my brother. Anywhere you want to go. The last part, the last chapter, left, right. You want to beat me up? Take yours.
No, super is when I read the book and I think you gave me an early draft of it, but when I read the book, I couldn't help but cheering, saying, this is it, this is it, this is it. I don't know what it is, but selling isn't that difficult. Buying is very difficult.
Yeah.
And what we have to do is if we shift our focus to helping the customers and all, then we make their buying easy, and that's how selling becomes so easy, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, there's so many charlatans around here that come out with the latest silver bullet or magic trick or technique and so on and so forth. It's about people. It's about helping them. It's about creating value with them and showing the difference. I mean, if you look at it, if you're in any competitive situation, any decision the customer makes isn't going to be a bad decision. So how do you get them to focus on you? And it's how you engage them and help them figure things out. Customers are struggling these days. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what's important. And so what gap selling does is it's a roadmap to helping you be very customer focused, helping you do the things that create value for the customer and real joy in your life as a salesperson. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else. This is so much fun. It's like, Keenan was talking about curiosity. When I was a kid, my dad used to buy puzzles. It was the old kind of paper puzzles and all that. And the first couple of times I'd do
Wait,
it with
they had paper when you were a kid? You weren't using a slate? I would have swore you had a slate.
Excuse me, I have something in my eyes. But first I'd look at it with the picture, but then he made me do it with the back of the cardboard, looking at it gray, and trying to figure those things out and I carry it on here. So I couldn't see a better guidebook than Gap Selling. It's really been a privilege to participate in this, and again, it is the second best book on selling.
Second. Now you got to put it in front of the camera, old timer. A little more.
It is the second. This is more on sales management, not selling, but it's meeting both Jeffs and being on this. It is such a real privilege. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Come on, man. Of course, there was no better person. Now hold up your book again so everybody can see it. Put it in front of the camera.
Put it in front of my face.
Okay, a little more to your right, I think. Go a little more to your right. A little more. There you go. Everybody, I agree. Go buy that book. It's a phenomenal book, and it is thick too. It's not just a quick, trite and colloquial, bullshit like everybody else puts out. It's legit. See all the different knives? That's a great metaphor for what the book's all about. And it's a lot better looking than his face too. So go buy it. It's phenomenal. If you want to be a sales manager, go get it. If you're a current sales manager now and you want to up your game, go get it. And if you're a sales level 2, level 3 sales leader, get it to help you manage your frontline managers to be better frontline managers. Because as David says in his book, the frontline sales manager is probably the most valued yet most underrated position in the entire company. The executives get all the play and the individual salespeople get all the play, but it's really that frontline guy or girl who has to do all that work and get those people motivated is who matters. And Dave does a great job of making them as productive as possible. So well done, Dave. All right, folks, well, listen up. Thank you very much for those who showed up. I apologize that I didn't put this in the calendar, so many of you, I'm sure, missed it. Our numbers were down from normal, but I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you, Jeff, and David, for participating. David, thank you for being a huge supporter in my career as an independent consultant all the way up to growing this company to what it is today. You're a huge part, so I appreciate it, especially in the early days. You were the man. So with that, everybody, you know what I'm going to say. Until next time, peace. I'm out.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All right, boys. I can't talk once I hit this, so bye-bye.
Bye.